Good morning everyone. This is my BMW R 1200 RS 2017 model. Today's review is a 1,000-mile review. I've just put 1,000 miles on this bike and it's going to be a more honest review. I'm going to be covering some of the facts and the features and the specifications of this bike, and I'll also be talking about my honest opinion, both the good, the bad and the ugly on this particular bike. If you are a subscriber to my channel or you've seen any of my previous videos, you will know I have done a review video that I done probably 3 or 4 days after initial purchase of this bike, but haven't had the opportunity to ride it. There's certainly some things that I forgot to mention and some new things that I do want to talk about, and just more about the riding experience on the day-to-day use of this particular motorcycle. So the first thing to talk about is the fact that BMW have 3 different specifications that you can buy for this particular bike. Their standard one, the medium one, which is known as their sports, and then the premium one. This particular bike here is the sports. It's the middle range one, and I think in terms of price you're talking £11,000 to £12,000 for the medium and £13,000 for the high spec one. Now it may be slightly dear on their specification sheet, but that's generally the prices that you'll pay in some sort of deal with your dealership. That's what I would expect to pay anyway. This bike cost me £12,000. The colour scheme is a paint pack. You do have to pay extra for the paint pack. I believe it's £350. The standard colours of the blue and white come as part of the package, and to add this you're talking about £350 extra for the white with the black and the red subframe, which I think looks particularly good on this bike. And if you get talking to the right dealership, they may throw it in as part of the deal. I'm just going to talk about some of the facts and features that I may have covered before. I think it looks like an amazing bike. I love the shape of the bike. I love the colour scheme of the bike, and I love the boxer engine, which I'll touch on in a minute. The bike comes with this chrome exhaust pipe. It somewhat differs to some of these stumpy cans that you're seeing in a lot of modern motorcycles, and they've went for this bigger styled exhaust pipe, but I think that's something that is going to stay now with the Euro 4 emissions. It seems like all exhaust pipes are going to get bigger over the next few years, so if you don't like it, there's not much you can do about it because they're all going to go that way. But BMW have made this one chrome, and I think it stands out quite well on the motorcycle itself. It has Brembo brakes front and rear, which are gold calipers, which I really like. I think they stand out on the motorcycle quite a bit. This is the bike just from the other side. The 3 packages I will talk about first. So the standard at about £11,000, you won't get a quick shifter, you won't get electronic riding modes, you won't get heated grips, and I think for me anyway it merits going up to the sport mode, the medium one, in order to get those. To upgrade to the next level up to the premium one, rather than having a manually adjusted rear preload, you will have electronic suspension on the top of the range model. You also get a center stand, and you will also get cruise control, which you'll not get on this particular model. So it really depends what you're looking for in a bike and what level of specification you want to go to, and obviously how much you can afford it. For me, not having electronic rider modes is not a big problem. I don't tend to do a lot of pillion carrying or a lot of touring where I'm taking heavy baggage. That would only happen every so often, so I don't have any problem manually adjusting it. I also don't tinker around with the bikes too much, and therefore the lack of a center stand doesn't bother me, but I could have added it. It wasn't that expensive. I could have added it to this model, and cruise control for me is not something I have considered at this point, but I do hear it is a good feature if you're doing a lot of commuting miles, especially over long distance. So let's talk about some of the features. I have talked about some of this before, but we'll get into what it feels like to ride on a daily basis in a moment or two. So the Brembo brakes front and rear, the gold tainted brake calipers front and rear, I think look really smart on the bike. One thing to mention on this particular bike is when you apply the brake, either front or back brake, it also applies a certain percentage to the alternative. And what I mean by that is, if I pull the front brake on this bike, it doesn't just single out the front tyre for braking, it also puts 20 to 30% of that braking through the rear tyre. And if I push on the rear brake, it'll apply 70% to the rear and 30% to the front, and it creates a different feeling in braking. I feel it has more of a immediate bite than I have found on other bikes, a smooth but yet firm bite towards the end, and I think that's different to any bike I have ridden before. It also creates a bit of a stability, I find. So this bike doesn't have corner and ABS, but the fact that it applies some breakage to the front and some to the rear, no matter what brake you use, creates a stability and allows for kind of smooth deceleration, which I really like. And I don't believe that is found on too many other motorcycles right now. Obviously, a big part of what you're paying for is the BMW badge. In my opinion, they are the most reliable motorcycles out there. But again, that is just my opinion, and people will have their own opinions on that. But I have been riding for the last few years a BMW 800 ST. The bike was 10-year-old when I sold it. It had quite a few miles on it. It was ridden in all weather conditions, and yet it was immaculate. No rust, no signs of wear and tear. This bike is a shaft drive, so if you don't want to fiddle around with chains, a shaft drive or a belt drive is the way to go. Obviously, a shaft drive being a bit more advanced and needing even less maintenance than a belt drive should be the way to go. I really like it on a motorcycle. Now, people will claim you lose performance when you go for the likes of a shaft drive and not a belt, because of the way the mechanisms work. But at 125 brake horsepower and 125 foot-pounds of torque on this bike, there's not too many other motorcycles have as much torque on the road as this bike has. I believe it has more torque than the Tuono, the Aprilia Tuono, so that just shows you how much torque is in this vehicle. It has a boxer engine in it. Now, it's the first time I have ridden a boxer engine. Whether or not you like the look of a boxer engine, because it's set out quite wide from the frame, but I've got used to that. A boxer engine certainly feels different to ride than any other motorcycle I've ever been on. At a standstill, you can certainly feel a slight vibration. You can feel the engine work from left to right, and at high speeds that vibration tends to go away. But being a twin and being a boxer twin, it has a huge amount of torque in the vehicle. One thing I didn't mention in my previous video, which I want to definitely cover in this particular video, is a quick shifter. So this bike actually comes with a quick shifter built in as standard. Again, the lower spec model won't have this, it'll be an upgraded extra. On the medium and the high spec model, it'll have the quick shifter. Have never used one before. I could have took it or leave it at the dealership, but it comes as part of the package. And only 3 to 4 weeks into ownership of this bike, I don't think I would ever live without a quick shifter. It makes a huge difference to your riding experience. You don't have to clutch when you're going through the gears, only getting from neutral to first, and therefore you don't have to decelerate through your shifting up or shifting down in the gears, and therefore you're riding at a more constant speed. I would call it more semi-automatic feature, but I know strictly speaking it isn't. But having a quick shifter on a motorcycle, I think, is a huge benefit. I want to talk about wind protection. So the wind protection on this bike is probably not as good as you would anticipate. Now, I wouldn't say it has bad wind protection, but somehow I felt when I was purchasing the vehicle that it would be slightly better than what it is. As a person, when you're in the riding position, the seat sits at about 810 millimeters at standard. So if you're anywhere from 5'8" to about 6 foot, you're going to comfortably be able to get in this bike and have at least the ball of your foot on the floor, if not your full foot. So it is a relatively low seat height. The bike weighs 236 kilograms. For a 1200cc motorcycle, that is quite light, but it's obviously a good bit heavier than, let's say, your average 600 or 700 or 800cc motorcycle. And I think that does two things on this bike. One, it allows you at speed not to feel the wind affect the bike. You'll not be blown from left to right because it has enough weight to battle through that wind and keep its stability. But at low speeds, because the boxer engine is, the weight of the engine is so low down to the ground, you would think that a motorcycle of 236 kgs would have some stability issues, or that the bike would be hard to walk with. I can honestly say it's one of the easiest bikes that I've found for that. There's no problem. At 236 kilograms, I can stand this bike comfortably. I'm 5'9", 5'10", and I can walk this bike forward and back, uphill, downhill, over stone, and always feel comfortable doing it. So don't let the size of the CC engine or the weight put you off. So the wind protection, your feet tend to sit in behind the boxer engine when you're on your foot pegs, and therefore you're completely protected from the wind from your feet. There's also a curvature that isn't maybe just as obvious on the video as it is in person, but the bike sinks in quite a bit and makes a comfortable riding position for your legs. With your pegs being slightly canted forward and a slightly rider mode, you tend to fit into the fuel tank, and I think your body therefore is fully protected. The front of the vehicle is quite wide as well, from this point to this point, and therefore it tends to protect your body also. Now where it begins to have an issue is on your helmet. The screen, which I'll cover now, has two positions. It has low, the medium, a standard. You can take the two bolts off your screen, reapply them in two other positions, and rather than have a low to medium, you can have a medium to high, moving the screen even further up, but you can't do that without actually detaching it from your motorcycle and reattaching it. As standard, they always set them up in the low to medium setup, so I have two setups, manually adjustable, so there is no electronic adjustable screens on this particular motorcycle. But the amount of wind hitting the helmet would surprise you. So it is a smooth, constant flow of air, but it would be more than I would expect. It certainly doesn't put me off this motorcycle, but I will over time probably try and do something with that. My first thing I'm going to do is take off the screen and reapply it to the other position that you can as default, moving the screen slightly further up so I have a medium to high. And then after that, if that fails to work, I think I'll be looking at an aftermarket screen on this bike, and I might go for a tinted screen, almost the same colour as this. So that's one negative that I would say. It's just not as good. Now it probably compares to other sports touring motorcycles or 1000cc sports bikes, and if you tuck your head down, certainly you'll be out of the wind, but for me it is a bit of a letdown on the particular screen. So you also have things around the bike here for plugging things in. You obviously have good pillion rails. You have the racks built to standard, so you can put on the panniers should you want to, but you have to buy them as an added extra, much like other things with BMW. The seat is extremely comfortable, and I can easily sit there for a couple of hours and not feel any discomfort whatsoever. Just going to start the engine now, and we'll talk about some of the features up front. So the start stop is here. It's your kill switch on the start switch. There we have it. It's a nice sounding engine. Lights on at the front. Okay, so we'll start with the lights. So much like other BMWs, there's a slight squint in the lights, and hopefully that becomes apparent whenever you see this on video, but they're not symmetrical is basically what I'm saying. You have side lights, and then you have this LED running light. Depending on the light of the room that you're in, or depending on what area you are outside, obviously the light will dictate which one of those lights appears as they're automatic. So either your LED running light will be on, or your side lights will be on as default. Up front then, you have a 20 litre fuel tank. Now it claims to get a range of about 220 miles whenever I fill it to the brim, but in reality I would say you're closer to 170, 175. So slightly disappointed that it's not doing more miles per tank or a higher range, but I think it's early days on this particular motorcycle. It hasn't really broken in yet, and I believe the MPG will go up over time as the efficiency of the engine breaks in. Your riding modes is here. Simple button on your dash, much like most things at BMW. It feels quite integrated and feels quite natural and in a good position. You can change from road, dynamic, to user, to rain modes, just with a click of a button. You have 2-point adjustable heated grips, to the level 1, the off. You have this particular screen with the speedometer up the left, not a ravometer up the left, and then the digital display screen here. With a range of different options, I can change by pushing this info button. I can change from miles to MPG, and you can see that since I bought this motorcycle I'm getting 45 MPG, an average speed of 43, date, time, oil levels, etc. And then a different style. Style 0 is the most detailed. Style 2 is basically a ravometer. Style 3 is basically a mileometer and very little other information. And then back to your default style 0. When you're accelerating up through the gears, some people have said that it may be quite hard to see because it's quite small. I haven't found that, and the numbers tend to enlarge as you go up through the ravometer, so it's quite easy to see how many revs you're producing. The speedometer is very apparent up the left hand side because it's analog, so I don't think there's a problem there. Now the bike will continue to flash ABS until the bike is actually in motion, so that's not a fault, that's just the way it is. You can also, from changing your info, you can also change your trip information, see how many miles you've done, trip 1, 2, 3, or enter a particular miles. You can turn off ABS with a push of this button. You have your warning hazards here, your automatic lights here, so you can pick that automatic feature off, so it doesn't flick between the LED running light and the side light, but I leave that on permanently. And your lights either flick switch to quickly flick or push it out to create a constant, bring it back in. Now I'm just going to kill this for now. So hopefully I've covered most points on the particular motorcycle, and now I just want to cover quickly what it's like riding day to day. I've talked a wee bit about the weight. So the weight's quite down low. I find that quite easy to maneuver compared to other 1200cc's, and comparable, believe it or not, to my 800cc. I just don't find a problem with it at all. Because of the size of the Boxer engine, you would think that filtering becomes an issue, but it's not. As long as you can fit up front, so as in your handlebars and your mirror can fit past the vehicle, your Boxer engine will also fit past the vehicle, so filtering is not an issue for me either. And if anything, it feels far more safe filtering in this motorcycle because of the size of the bike and the weight of the bike. It seems that you can move along on this motorcycle at 3 to 4 miles per hour without ever dropping your feet, where in other motorcycles you begin to feel a bit unstable at those speeds. This bike doesn't seem to have that, and if you just apply a simple bit of pressure to your back brake, the stability increases enormously on this particular motorcycle because it's sending some breakage to the front, some to the rear. As I say, the seat position is very comfortable. You could sit on it all day. A slightly canted forward sports-like position on this motorcycle, but because of the higher raised bars, so they're raised up quite a bit, you don't feel like there's any pressure on your wrists, and I think they've got that spot on. The brakes are obviously great, the shaft drive's obviously great, and the quick shifter I couldn't live without now. Up front, everything just feels natural. It feels exactly where I would expect it to be. The screen is good for being able to see above or through it. The fact that it's adjustable and you can't do it on the fly, I think, is good. The screen is very clear. It's very obvious what gear I'm in. It's very obvious what speed I'm in. I won't be caught off guard with it. From my riding position, I think the mirrors are one of the best mirrors that I've seen, and on all motorcycles I've had, to look in a mirror you tend to have to tuck in an elbow or tuck in this elbow to look in your left or right mirrors, because you're seeing 3/4 of yourself and 1/4 of the road. Where these mirrors are, the shape and style of them and the way they sit out on the motorcycle, I can actually see fully behind myself, which gives you a confidence on the motorcycle. A few other things that are probably overlooked, and we're getting into smaller details now, is things like brake and clutch levers. Okay, so on most motorcycles that would be one of the first things you would change, because either they feel too metallic, they feel clunky, they're too heavy, and they're usually non-adjustable. On this motorcycle they're adjustable, so I have mine adjusted to position 1, which is the closest position both for brake and for clutch. And because the clutch is so light on this motorcycle and the brake is quite light as well, I can now kind of 1 finger or 2 finger clutch and 1 or 2 finger brake for the first time in my life. And I'm not a person to go and change a motorcycle or add modifications, so the fact that detail like this comes as standard is a great setup. The bike feels compact, it feels powerful. The torque in the bike is probably one of the strongest that I've felt, but also you can ride this bike quite sensibly, so you have the best of both worlds. It's set up for commuting. I never feel like it has a jerky or snotchy engine, but it always has power. It has power right through the rev range. It never seems to let off, so I can push it or relax on it as much as I possibly want. At 125 brake horsepower and 125 pounds of torque, it's going to do that. Probably a realistic max speed of 130 miles per hour, so not quite what the book would tell you. I don't think there's much else I really want to say for now. As I say, I've done 1,000 miles on it. I think it's been a great purchase, and if I was weighing up some pros and cons, to be honest about it, I would say pro is the Boxer engine. It's a great engine, it's very torquey. Pro shaft drive, pro the look of the vehicle, pro the Brembo brakes, pro the quick shifter, pro the wing mirrors, pro the dashboard. For me, I really like it. Pro the riding position for me. But cons, I definitely think this screen, this wind protection screen, it's just not as good as it should be. On a pricey vehicle like this, I think they could have got that right. And I don't mind that it's not an electronic adjustable screen. I just care that it's not protect me from the wind as much as I would have liked. So I think that is a con for this motorcycle. Another con, I guess, is the price. So it is a very expensive motorcycle. Now, I firmly believe you're getting what you're paying for. You're getting not only BMW badge, but the reliability and durability of a motorcycle. And with this new liquid cooled Boxer engine, I don't think there'll ever be a problem with this particular motorcycle. So you're getting what you're paid for, but it is a couple of £1,000 probably more than some of its rivals. And if you're going for the high spec to get the likes of cruise control and get every other feature that you want on the bike, you're paying a hell of a lot more than some of your rivals. So whether or not you think it's actually worth the money becomes an issue. Now, I got a decent deal from Charleshurst in Belfast in Northern Ireland, so they give me the colour pack for free, and they also threw in a £650 sat nav. But on reflection of that, the sat nav was useless without a BMW motor rod sat nav mount, and the mount costs about £180, and the dealership won't cover the price for that. So even though they give me a free sat nav, you know, you're expected to pay. Also, I've just brought it through last week. It's 600 mile checkup service. The service itself cost £160. So again, BMWs aren't cheap to service. They're not cheap ownership, I wouldn't say. But the detail and everything in the bike, even in the lights, the fact that it has BMW there, even on the screen it is BMW there, it basically is just so much detail. And the more I look at the bike, I notice that over and over again. The BMW is put everywhere on this bike. Comes with great tires as well, and as I say, it's a great bike, great engine. I'm very happy with my purchase. If I had the same amount of money again and I was in the same market again in 2017, I would buy it again, and I think that says it all basically about this motorcycle. So I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. It's been an honest review of 1,000 miles of my BMW R 1200 RS. Good luck.